Of NPR and PBS testified before Congress this week amid accusations of liberal bias. Should the government continue to send taxpayer dollars to public broadcasters? Well, a little background here. I mean, they've been after them the Republicans have wanted to get rid of PBS for as long as I can remember. This crowd will probably do it. I mean, I also read my namesake, Catherine Maher, was head of NPR, and she said, "We're completely unbiased. Give me a break, lady." I mean, they're crazy far left.
Bill Maher recently squared off with liberal professor John McCarter on his show, and it was absolute fireworks. The university academic, known for pushing woke ideology, walked straight into a buzzsaw. It felt like Maher had been waiting his whole career for this moment. He didn't just challenge McCarter. He dismantled his arguments in a way that'll echo through academic halls for years. If you're into sharp, no-holds-barred political debates, hit that subscribe button.
John, you work at Columbia University.
I do.
Speaking of clown cars.
I should say that I have been on a blissful sabbatical for the entire year.
Lucky you.
I only know so much, but go ahead.
All right. Well, I mean, starting last week, Trump is going to war now on elite universities. Now, I cannot be a hypocrite. I went through my book that came out last year. It'll be out in paperback very soon. I can't be a hypocrite. I wrote down some of the things that I've said over the past that were gathered in the book. Don't go to an elite college, it makes you stupid. Elite universities are the mouth of the river from which manner all radical left illiberal, yes, illiberal nonsense flows. They're four-year daycare centers for the cry bullies of the privileged to complain about privilege. College today is not the college you remember. It's a day spa and a North Korean re-education camp put together.
Bill Maher didn't waste a second once the segment began. From the start, he came out swinging, criticizing elite colleges for turning into ideological echo chambers. He called out Ivy League institutions for becoming hubs of extreme activism, focused more on political agendas than education. Maher took aim at how these universities have become central to heated cultural debates, from language politics to controversial protest movements. He also challenged their role in blurring the lines around gender policies, especially in sports and campus regulations, all under the banner of progress. And let's not forget, these are the same schools charging six figures for degrees while pushing the idea that even basic facts are subjective. Maher's takedown was sharp, long overdue, and late.
They're asshole factories. If ignorance is a disease, Harvard Yard is the Wuhan wet market. Okay, so that's where I am. I can't, but I get the inclination, but as with most things now with this new administration, the way they do it, you can't do it by taking people off the street just because they wrote an op-ed pro-Palestinian. I'm not pro-Palestinian the way they see it either, but, these people who are just disappeared because they have a tattoo. I'm so glad I don't have tattoos.
I don't believe the students were arrested simply for anti-Semitism. They were arrested for violating protest laws. Plain and simple. Let's not twist facts. Everyone has the constitutional right to express their views, whether for or against a cause. But freedom of speech doesn't mean freedom from consequences, especially when protests cross the line into occupations, property damage, or threats. That's where the line is drawn. Now let's talk about the real driver behind all this chaos. Radicalized campus activism fueled by certain college lecturers. These so-called educators have done more to influence students politically than to educate them academically. They push divisive ideologies, minimize serious global threats, and present anti-Israel narratives as unchallenged fact. It's no surprise that
The kind of student you're talking about, in my experience, is a minority of the students. I don't see the whole campus as this, but there is a problem. I mean, frankly, Columbia has tried, for example, this year to eradicate or at least dampen anti-Semitism. I mean, Manoush Shafiq did get 100 students arrested. You now cannot get onto the campus without a card, which is in order to protect, especially Jewish students, from having to listen to anti-Semitic protests all day long. The 3 administrators who were nakedly anti-Semitic in their texts were justifiably fired. But the thing is, I don't think this is really about anti-Semitism.
Fortunately for McCarter, he does agree that anti-Semitism has no place on college campuses, and that Israeli students deserve to live, study, and thrive in peace. It's a breath of fresh air to hear that from someone who usually walks a fine line around progressive talking points. And yes, it's encouraging to see institutions like Columbia finally stepping up and implementing measures to ensure Jewish students feel safe and supported. It's long overdue, but a welcome step nonetheless. However, McCarter's claim that only a handful of students are engaging in anti-Semitic behavior, that's simply not accurate, and he knows it. The images are everywhere. The chants, the threats, the encampments. This wasn't the work of a few isolated individuals. We've seen large groups marching with signs calling for Israel's destruction. We've seen people blocking campus.
Did the panel think of Democratic Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett calling Texas governor, okay, she's from Texas, the governor, Greg Abbott, who is paralyzed and uses a wheelchair, she called him Governor Hot Wheels.
Before I play the intense exchange between Bill Maher and John McWhorter, let me just say this. I find it incredibly hypocritical that Representative Jasmine Crockett, someone known for championing identity politics, is out here mocking someone over a physical disability. These are the same people who frequently weaponize race, gender, and disability when it suits their agenda. They cry ableism at the slightest joke, yet go silent when one of their own crosses the line. So when Crockett uses Texas Governor Greg Abbott's disability as a punchline, it's not just in poor taste. It reveals the cracks in the moral high ground they constantly claim to stand on. Her remarks weren't just inappropriate. They exposed the performative nature of the so-called compassion that many of these identity-driven elites claim to uphold. Next voice.
Congressperson Crockett is part of the new trend where informality is okay, where formality used to reign. Okay, fine. That's been going on since the 60s. So her routine is that she wants to bring a little bit of what I might quaintly call the ghetto cat fight into these spaces. I get it, you know, bring a blaxploitation movie or something into Congress. Great, work it. But you do not make fun of the fact that somebody lives their life in a wheelchair. That doesn't work.
Crockett mocking Governor Greg Abbott's physical condition is a deal-breaker for me. Not because I'm here to defend Abbott personally, but because it completely shatters the narrative she and her political allies constantly push. These are the same people who talk nonstop about inclusion, empathy, and protecting marginalized communities, until it's someone they disagree with politically. Then suddenly, mockery and cruelty are acceptable. And let's not overlook the silence from prominent Democrats. Where was the outrage? Where were the think pieces and emotional Twitter threads? Crickets. Now imagine if Donald Trump or any Republican had said something even remotely similar. The media would have erupted. Hollywood would have launched a hashtag campaign, and Crockett herself might have held a press conference through tears. But because it came from one of their own, the double standard takes over and it's business as usual. It's hypocrisy at its loudest and most...
I'm really not. You know why? Because I'm a big fan of Family Guy. And they have... Am I wrong? Every week. I mean, one of the characters, Joe the cop, is in a wheelchair, and every week there's 20 jokes about him being in a wheelchair, and nobody died. And like, I just think everybody has to, like, lighten up a little. Yeah, it's terrible to be in a wheelchair, but, you know, it's not like it's news to him. I don't know.
And this is where Bill Maher really poked the bear. His blunt, indifferent response lit a fire under McWhorter, who seemed genuinely rattled, clearly believing Maher had abandoned all logic. And to be honest, I actually share some of McWhorter's concerns, which I'll play for you in just a moment. His reaction wasn't baseless. Maher's dismissal, whether performative or sincere, raised eyebrows for a reason. Because if we're taking Maher's words at face value, it reveals something deeper. We can't blindly trust opinion leaders, no matter how sharp or charismatic they may seem. One moment they're fighting for free speech and critical thinking, and the next they're brushing off real concerns like they don't matter. Maher's take may have been designed to provoke, but it all...
Sure, Family Guy. I've seen every episode. But that wasn't a cartoon. This is real life, and she was saying it with dismissive hostility, as opposed to the cartoonish, we can get away with it because we're drawn. Jasmine Crockett is not drawn, and neither is Abbott. I see a distinction, although I see what you mean.
Okay, all right.
Got to give credit where it's due. McWhorter held his ground and pushed back on Maher pretty effectively in this exchange. He made a solid point. Yes, cartoons are just representations of people, but let's not pretend they're always harmless. They're often used to exaggerate stereotypes and deliver messages that land like real punches. Cartoons might not have feelings, but the people they mock certainly do. We can shrug things off and say, it's just a joke. But that's a lazy excuse. A lot of so-called jokes are actually disrespectful, demeaning, and damaging. They reinforce harmful tropes, normalize bias, and make others feel emboldened to repeat the same ideas under the banner of humor. The truth is, words and images have power, whether it's through stand-up comedy, social media, or yes, even cartoons.
The heads of NPR and PBS testified before Congress this week amid accusations of liberal bias. Should the government continue to send taxpayer dollars to public broadcasters? Well, a little background here. I mean, they've been after them the Republicans have wanted to get rid of PBS for as long as I can remember. This crowd will probably do it. I mean, I also read my namesake, Catherine Maher, was head of NPR, and you know, she said, we're completely unbiased. Give me a break, lady. I mean, they're crazy far left.
Both NPR and PBS need to be privatized. They've made it clear where they stand politically, aligning themselves closely with the Democratic Party. And here's why. First, NPR urged its member stations to lobby Congress in opposition to Trump-era federal funding cuts, mobilizing board members, volunteers, and community leaders in support of the Biden administration's agenda. Secondly, PBS CEO Paula Kerger publicly pledged to defend the network, even threatening legal action if Trump officials attempted to challenge its funding or board structure. That's a clear political stance, not a neutral one, and it didn't stop there. In 2021, both NPR and PBS gave significant attention to polling that favored Biden's pandemic response, reinforcing narratives that aligned with his administration. These aren't isolated incidents. They represent a consistent pattern of partisan messaging funded by taxpayers. Why should public dollars support media outlets that act more like political advocates than neutral public broadcasters? Privatization would eliminate this conflict of interest and push these outlets to regain balance and credibility. When media funded by the government consistently supports one party's agenda, it undermines public trust and fuels polarization. If NPR and PBS want to champion a political viewpoint, they should do it with private funding, not with money from American taxpayers. Privatization is the logical step forward. It would free these organizations from government dependence and require them to earn their audience through honest, balanced journalism, not ideological loyalty. That brings us to the end of today's video. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.